they're going to the emergency room because somebody swallowed a rock or something. True story. They're boys, so. Yeah. Okay, so moving expenses for members of the armed forces. Again, this is only for members of the armed forces, so for us civilians, we do not get any moving expense deduction. So it also applies to their spouses or dependents. They have to be on active duty as well. The form that they use to report these moving expenses is Form 3903. And what they do is they list out the total expenses that they had, like transportation and storage, travel expenses, and then any amount that was reimbursed is subtracted from that, and then the moving expense deduction is what is left over. This is, I mean, it's pretty short form. There's only 5 lines on it there, so it's a pretty short calculation. What's important about this one is just the limitations on it. You know, it's highly limited. So, members of the U.S. forces on active duty, and they have to move because of a permanent change of station. So already we've got armed forces, active duty, permanent change of station. And then they go on to define what exactly a permanent change of station entails. I won't go through that. You can read that. Any amounts that the government reimburses them for, and I'm not a member of the military. I don't have really an experience with the military, but I have a hard time believing that there's very many situations where military members would experience that and have to pay anything out of pocket for it. But there's a deduction, I guess, if you do. What do I know? It might happen all the time. Who knows? If any of you have different experiences, please chime in. So any reimbursements or other allowances would be then deducted from those total expenses. So what is included? So moving household goods and personal effects, I guess if it's like anything associated with the spouse or the dependents, maybe. So they can deduct expenses of moving their household goods, personal effects, including like hauling a trailer, packing, crating, storage, insurance. They cannot deduct expenses for moving furniture or other goods that were purchased on the way from their old home to their new home. So they can't stop off at Homemakers and buy a new set and deduct that cost of delivery. Can only include the cost of storing and insuring within any period of 30 days after the day these goods and effects are moved. So there's either from their former home or to their new home. Travel expenses, expenses of traveling, so airfare, car expenses, that sort of thing. Actual out-of-pocket expenses like gas and oil. They can use either actual expense, and you'll see this again when we talk about business expenses and transportation. They have a choice, either actual out-of-pocket expenses or a standard mileage rate for moving. So if it's 1,000 miles, the rate is 22 cents a mile, so that would be $220. If the cost of gas and oil, the gas that they use getting there is more than $220, then it makes more sense to use the actual expenses. If not, it makes more sense to use the per mile rate. In addition, parking fees and tolls can be added to that. Some different requirements if it's a foreign move. So the deductible moving expenses are expanded to include reasonable expenses of moving the service member's household goods and personal effects to and from storage in that case, and storing the items for part or all of the time that the new job location remains the service member's main duty location. So they had to store their stuff while they were stationed overseas with active duty. So service members, what am I saying? So spouse and dependents are included. If the member dies, is imprisoned, or deserts, a permanent change of station for the spouse or dependent includes a move to any of the following: the place of enlistment, the member, spouse's dependent's home of record, or a near point in the United States. So if the family is with them and one of those things happens, then they will pay to, or you can deduct the cost for the spouse and the dependent to come back to the US. What else? I already went through the form there, 3903, and they've got the line-by-line instructions there. Any question about that? I mean, the big thing is it's only limited to members of the military, so limited circumstances. Used to be everybody. They used to have this rule where if you moved and it was more than 50 miles from your old place, your new place of work, what was it? From your old residence to your new place of work, and you had to live there and work full-time for at least 37 of the following weeks of the year, then you could deduct moving expenses. They don't do that anymore. Now moving expenses are not deductible for civilians. Also, it used to be that if your employer paid for you to move, which happened a lot, they'd pay the expenses, used to be that was not taxable. That is now taxable. So if your employer pays for you to, like maybe they pay for the commission on selling your house or something like that, and they pay for the truck and everything, $25,000 for you to move from point A to point B. That's $25,000 of taxable income now, and you got to come up with the tax, even though you don't have the cash, because what they gave you is not cash. They paid for your moving expenses. That is now taxable income. So
What happened when we moved here from Virginia, John here paid for my husband, and we didn't see any of the amounts because they paid the moving company directly, and then we get his W-2 at the end of the year. We were like, what? Like it made his income like.
yes, it can be a huge amount. Yeah, and it's very surprising. Yeah. It's too bad they didn't inform you beforehand.
They might inform him.
Oh, and they might. I gotcha.
Maybe.
Yeah. Any other questions or? Okay.